You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good Tuesday evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am your host for tonight, Joe Mays. Not here with me this evening is Justin Raffoff, because this is a special airing of the Bulldog Hour. This time of year is crunch time, and we have a lot to offer. So many interviews happening. Last episode, just a couple nights ago on Sunday, August 4th, you heard the interview with our 2024 senior players. We talked to 6 individuals. I hope everyone caught that. It is available on our YouTube page, Wilson Bulldogs Football. You can check out episode 2 of season 10 with those senior players, and I thank them for joining me last week. Also last week, just about 1 week ago, I sat down with head coach Doug Dahms, who is entering his 19th season as head coach of the Wilson football program. You are going to hear that interview in its entirety here in just a few minutes. The interview with him alone is just over an hour, so I'm not going to spend too much time covering anything else. Just want to get a couple housekeeping things in order. Want to remind everyone that the show is presented by May's Sandwich Shop, sponsor of the show since day one. Thanks to my dad for always supporting this endeavor. And also, so far, this active football season, we have one other donor, wish to remain anonymous, but we thank them as always because they have also been with us since day one. Every single year they have supported this show. This is the 10th season of the Bulldog Hour, debuted back in the summer of 2015. So looking to celebrate our 10th anniversary next summer. Very excited for that. Our next live show will be this coming Sunday, August 11th. 6:30 p.m. is the start time for these shows this season, and we'll be sitting down with a multitude of assistant coaches. Justin and I are actually recording those interviews tomorrow after the morning practice. It is heat acclimatization week. That got underway yesterday. The 2 or 3 a day practices get started next Monday. So football season is here, alive and well. We talked a lot about the schedule last time and introduced those non-conference, non-league games that are happening, games 1, 2, and 3, and technically game 6 against Mifflin. But we're very familiar with the Mustangs. But games 1, 2, and 3 are the big ones with relative unknowns entering the schedule this year in Cheltenham, Plymouth, Whitemarsh, and Nazareth area. And you will hear Coach Dahms talk about those teams in this interview. I actually think that might be it to cover here before the interview is played with Coach Dahms. So we're not going to wait any longer. Let me cue that up and hand it off to my past self and head coach Doug Dahms. And I'll be back to wrap things up in about an hour. Enjoy the interview. All right, we heard from 6 of our senior players. Now it's time to talk to the head coach, Doug Dahms, here with me on the Season 10 episode of the Bulldog Hour, and we're going to talk about a little bit about last season, but mostly about 2024. So, Coach Dahms, thanks for joining me again on the Bulldog Hour.
As always, Joey, thanks for what you do. You know, you keep Wilson football out there for all our fans and non-fans to watch and appreciate.
Well, let's start there at the top, something different, because it doesn't come up every year, but Wilson football is celebrating another milestone. 80th season in the program's history is coming up this year. And as I promised you 5 years ago, I said, if you're still the head coach, we'll run another alumni event to honor, mark the occasion and welcome back people from the past that maybe don't always get to watch Wilson football games anymore. A lot of them have moved out of the area, but we were able to get a bunch back 5 years ago for the 75th season. And we're doing so again for year 80 here this fall in 2024. September 14th will be the Wilson football alumni flag football game. You will be a head coach again, as well as Jerry Slemmer trekking out with his brother from Arizona. Well, you'll be coaching against him once more. tell us, what does it mean to see some of those old faces, maybe that you don't get to see as often, and having former players and coaches return?
It's really a lot of fun. It really is. I mean, the 75th was a blast. I mean, we had people that played in the 70s. I think we had one from the 60s, actually.
I believe so, yes.
And I think a lot of them realized that their playing days were over. Some of them aren't showing up this time, but the guys get together. They have a lot of fun. I hope this doesn't count against my coaching record because I just tell the guys to go out and do what they want. We really don't coach.
No, it's more of a figurehead position.
A figurehead having fun. But Slemmer takes it serious.
He was much more serious than I expected him to be. But that kind of added to the environment, to the fun of the event. To see, he was giving me grief about he had too many linemen. Where were his athletes? I'm like, you're winning by 20. I think you're fine right now. But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got over 50 alumni coming back to play. Your coaching staff, maybe not a lot to do on that Saturday night here at Gursky, but you'll be with your current staff, basically, Coach Palm, Coach Henney, Coach Wolber. So we weren't able to get those guys here last time, but they'll be here with you this time. Actually, a few of the guys who coached with you last time have decided to play in the game. Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun. I don't think any of the alumni played in the 60s. Obviously, the Slemmers were playing in the 60s, but they're coaching. I think early 70s is where we drew the line, at least so far. But there's a lot that coming back from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That especially those late 90s, there's a big group coming back. Early 2000s, since I have a lot of connections there. But you'll be seeing a lot of your more recent players back as well from the time that you took over as head coach. I know you're moving into year 19 now, leading the team, but from 2006, circa that area, up until 2019, there's a good group coming back. So some of your more recent players you'll be seeing again too. So for those that don't know, the alumni game is Saturday, September 14th. 6 o'clock here at Gursky. Try to get here a little earlier, though, because we'll have a bunch of stuff happening before the game, and we're reaching out to alumni from band, cheerleaders, trainers, managers, just to make it a full community event. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the question is Doc Moyer going to be in name only, or is he actually going to work?
Well, what I was told initially was that he would be making a return. I haven't clarified if he's working or not, or if he's going to be a figurehead as well. We'll see. But yes, the athletic trainers, I said, outside of being at Gursky and getting to play on the field and playing with old teammates and other Wilson alumni, the athletic trainers are the next most mentioned group of people that they need at the game. That's how they play. Will the athletic trainers be there? And they were the first people I contacted after I talked to you and Jerry. So, yes, Kieran, Kyle, and Doc, signed, sealed, and delivered.
Good. We hope we don't need them, but...
Yeah, unfortunately...
You got to figure those early 70s players are... Sorry, those early 70s players are...
yeah.
70.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's the first quarter. Those 8 or 9 guys that trot out there, they're definitely making the sacrifice and putting themselves out there, and I appreciate it. I think that's we love to see those guys that just graduated in the last 10, 15 years, but seeing the guys from the 70s and 80s, that's the one that really brings out the alumni portion of it, and it'll be a lot of fun. The Slummers are coming in from Arizona. Greg Store's coming back. I believe he's in Louisiana. So, I mean, we're definitely out of state here. That's what makes the event so much fun. All right, so I said, Coach, 19th year as head coach. 49th on staff, I believe.
Yep.
Celebrating 80 years overall with the program itself. What are your motivations to continue to do this? What keeps bringing you back?
Kids are kids, but when you get a group of kids that wants to dedicate themselves to something and all strive for the same goals and bond together the way our team usually does, that's just, it's a process that's kind of fun to watch. Because, you start with 70, 80, and this year 90 kids that are all coming from different walks of life, different ethnicities, different socioeconomics, but on a Friday night, they're all the same. and we get all of those guys working towards a common goal. And when the machine gets rolling, it's just fun, and it's still fun. I mean, obviously after a loss, I'm ready to pack it in every year. My wife Susie has learned to stay away, for most of the weekend, not say things like "get over it," because that's never a big hit in my house. Then I use a few expletives because, but just watching the kids fun. Plus our coaching staff. I mean, our coaching staff's a big family. They're fun to be with. They socialize together. Even the new guys, Chad Henney, Rick Perriandi, Sal Puglisi's gonna come into the fold. They're just fun people to be around.
So you're entering your second year of quote retirement, not doing the teaching thing, retired from that last year. Was the first year without those responsibilities what you expected? Did you get to do more, or how did it go the first year?
It was a little bit easier on me, though my wife would say differently because I was never home. Because I kind of, I was either, down in my office next to the weight room, or so that I could be more in touch with kids. A lot of times I just camp out at the greeter's desk inside the office. Then I'd set up my computer and I'd do all my work because you have access and the printers and everything, and access to all the kids because they're coming through there all the time and you get to see them more. So, I played a few more rounds of golf than I normally would play in the fall. If it was a really gorgeous day and we weren't playing a team that had me really uptight. But other than that, it was a little easier on me. The 95, 96 hour work week probably dropped to about 75.
Is that all?
Yeah. Well, when you're used to 95, 75,
right. Hey, you cut down
leisure.
Those 20. Yeah, you kind of. What do I do? What do I do without a second time? I know you and Susie just got back from Jamaica. You're on your summer humanitarian trip. How did that experience go this year?
It went well. I mean, Susie was a little worried. She had some health issues that she's doing well now, but she was a little concerned about flying, but the doctors gave her the okay. So down there, she didn't do as much as she normally does, because of the strain. But as she said, it was very relaxing this year. Very relaxing for her because if she wasn't out, up at the infirmary or whatever, she could sit in the air conditioning while I was up in the 90-some degree weather, sweating my butt off every morning or every day, building. Pretty much finished the one guy's house. A few odds and ends he has to finish yet, but as far as what I have to do is pretty much done. So, built a bunch of cabinets for him, built some shelves, put some doors in, and mounted the sink in the bathroom. The guy's plumbing set up and everything. So, I might have to work. We're talking. Hopefully, he'll have it done, and I might have to do the porch, the steps up to a porch. But next year, but that'll be pretty easy. But so well. Yeah, we had 9 kids with us too that hadn't been in Jamaica before or had missed the experience and wanted to go. So that was interesting.
With your retirement from teaching last year, are you still able to run and organize the winter trips down to Jamaica? Is that something you?
Yeah, that went. I was a little concerned how that was going to go. I thought, well, I'm not teaching the accelerated course anymore. I don't have as much contact with those kids, but we've been doing it so long, word of mouth just, keeps going. Like we had 37 or 38 kids last year. So, that is a little bit easier to organize because I'm not trying to squeeze it in between everything with football. I have a little more free time, So, yeah. And, we'll continue doing that as long as, actually we talked about that, as long as our health allows. So.
Good. And I know my partner here, who's not able to be here today, I know he's gone with you a few times on that Jamaica trip and always has a great time. Before we look forward here to 2024, let's look back to last year, 2023. A 7-4 season, second place in the league, lost the first round to Cumberland Valley. What takeaways do you have from 2023? I asked your senior players, what they thought about last year and what were they going to use to build up for their senior year this coming season. Well, what about you? What do you look back on 2023 and what do you take away from it?
Well, Manheim Township was better than us last year. I don't think we did a very good job putting our players in a good position to take on their game. I was a little upset with myself on that one, but they were better. I mean, they should have been playing in the state finals, but they were up by 21.5 against Harrisburg.
Against Harrisburg, yeah.
And just left it get away. But so you learn a little bit. We're changing a little bit of things we do in the secondary as a result of that. Going back a little more old school, a little more tighter coverage and things. And then Cumberland Valley, I'll really take the blame for that one. We should not have been playing a 3 or 4-3 against them. We should have been in a 4-4. It's just, we knew their running game was the strength of their offense. We knew they had a good tight end, but we could cover, but we just, Ernie and I both bat our heads up against the wall that why, neither one of us, made that strong statement in game planning for them. But live and learn. No matter how many years you coach this, there's always something you're learning, or you're sitting there and kicking yourself. It's always easy, and hindsight's always 20/20. But I think, and even then we had that game. We had a chance. We had the fake punt that got us down and scored, and then got the ball back, stopped them, got the ball back, and had unfortunately 2 drop passes by our 2 best receivers. That would have given us a score. So, but what are you going to do? Kids are kids. They're going to make mistakes. We got to do a better job, making sure they're in a position to win.
So, I mean, you won 7 games. We saw the program earn a 60 straight non-losing season. The streak continues. 48 of that is wins. So there's still a lot to look back on. But it seems that group from last year, the senior class, was pretty big, and you had a lot of graduation losses this year. So looking ahead to 2024, is this the 2B senior class? Do they have the bodies to step up and fill those spots? Or are we looking at more of an underclass heavy roster this year? What's the outlook like personnel wise?
The seniors that we have coming back are good football players, but we don't have a lot of them that played last year. And so what's going to look like is we're going to have a nice mix of, upper class and lower class on the offensive line. I think both our tackles will be juniors, right? But the middle will both all be seniors. New quarterback, which has obviously been a question mark for us. I wouldn't say we're etched in stone yet at that one, but the one quarterback's a little bit ahead of the others in terms of decision making and speed of decision making. I feel we could be pretty good on the offensive line. I think we could be pretty good on the defensive line. I think we could be we have athletes. The question is,
are they football players?
The question is, many of them don't have any experience. I mean, they've experience in JVs and things like that. But the speed of the varsity game and the ability to make adjustments and the ability to think with your feet is the part that, is scary. That's why you like to have experienced players. So how fast we get up to speed mentally is going to be a big indicator on how good we're going to do.
When you get, you have that cupcake start to the year.
Oh yeah.
Simple, just single A programs across the board. Yeah. I talked to the players about the changes, because they were used to the non-league schedule. It's been pretty consistent for a while, especially Central Dauphin was a mainstay for a decade. Right. But of course, changes in the Mid-Penn, their way they reorganized, basically forced everyone's hand, and now they're off the schedule. So Cheltenham makes a return. We got to see them last year in kind of a late notice situation when the heat issues with Martin Luther King, right. They couldn't play, and then there were rain issues, delays. You ended up finishing the game against Cheltenham on Monday, so you have sort of some familiarity there. But then
that was a tale of two cities.
Right? Yeah, that was wild. That was a crazy.
If we finished the game Friday night, we crushed them, and then we let them come back and almost beat us.
Yeah, no game Friday. Come out Saturday, delayed on Saturday, right. Come back on Monday. I believe, actually, was it even delayed on Monday? Was there rain on
Yeah,
9/11?
yeah,
I think there was. So it was a wild situation. But now you at least have some familiarity in recent film of Cheltenham. They're your week 1 opponent. You're going there, though, this time. Then the next week, you're welcoming a team that Wilson's never played in Plymouth Whitemarsh, although Christo told me that that's his father's alma mater, so I didn't know that connection there. That was interesting.
9-2 last year. Supposedly 15 to 22 starters back.
Very strong team. That's your home opener here at Gursky. And then the next week, up to Nazareth, who you haven't played since, I think, 94, 95, somewhere in the mid-90s. But your former defensive back coach was a Wilson star on that team, and the running game did quite well against the Blue Eagles back in the 90s. But
they really got it going, though.
They are a much different program. They have a blue chip quarterback prospect who I believe just committed somewhere, Virginia Tech. Yeah. And he's only a junior. So that means if you're 2-year contract with them, we'll see him next year here as a senior. So what challenges do you have scheduling-wise, and what challenges do these 3 non-league teams present to you this year?
Well, scheduling-wise, and I don't know if I should say this, but I've said it in the quarterback club meetings. I wish our league, they went with 5 divisions in the LL Berks merger, and I really think they did that so the smaller schools would buy in. And I think if they went to 4, it would mean that then every school would have 2 non-league games, except the one division would only have 1 non-league game. It's a lot easier to find 2. I mean, we struggle to get games. We didn't pick up Nazareth until February.
Section 1 technically has 4 non-league to fill.
Right. We have 4
luckily for us, Wilson Mifflin is kind of an easy one to throw in there. But 3 otherwise. I agree, and we may have talked about this last year or previously when Berks-LL merger came up. I think a lot of people, especially Berks County, the small schools are for it. There's some pushback from other LL schools, but I agree with you. I thought for sure they were going to go to 4 to make. That was the biggest thing. We're so tough to find teams to schedule. How do we fill out these schedules? But then they go to 5 divisions, and you didn't really answer one of the biggest problems, other than maybe small school, big school inequity. But if you go to 4, the non-league schedule becomes a lot more easier to manage.
Yep, and that's exactly what happened. In 5, the smaller schools, then people will play them. But when you're at the top of the pile, and the 6A schools don't want to play you, the only ones you can get are the ones that are really good, that are willing to take the challenge, because they don't want to face you. So, we'll see if we can come through that initial 3-game stretch there healthy and with some experience, and I've won a couple of them. We're going to have a good year.
Yeah, multiple district championships for those 3 teams. At least 1 state final appearance. I believe that was Cheltenham back in 2019. So established programs, really strong programs over the last 5 years. So they'll propose quite a new task at hand to kick off the season. August 23rd at Cheltenham, August 30th here at Gursky versus Plymouth Whitemarsh before you go to Nazareth the first weekend in September. Besides some new opponents, you have had a little bit of staff changes. Your defensive back coach, Wilson alum Jamie Sands, was hired as the new head coach at Boyertown. What can you say about Jamie, his years here, and his move to Boyertown?
Jamie was a workaholic, kind of like the rest of our staff. Watched a ton of film, was always prepared for games, prepared the kids for games. Had an intensity, he played for us. So I knew there was an intensity there. And, I'd asked him to be on staff a couple of years back, several times. But the situation was right. But, he made he didn't hide that he wanted to be a head coach someday. And I said, well, I'm not going to be here forever. You want to come here, cut your teeth, with us, and, put yourself in a position. But he got impatient, and, he turned down the Lebanon job. But Boyertown is a job where you have a big school, good athletes, but he's starting from scratch. So he's got to get the community involved. He's got to get the school board involved. There's a lot more than what he's going to be doing on the football field to become successful. So as I told him, it's going to take him a couple of years. He's probably going to eat some humble pie. But he is in a league where he should be able to go 500 and get a little bit of excitement in the program and, go from there.
Boyertown, are they 5A or 6A?
They're 6A.
They are 6A. 2 years from now, is there a future home and home non-league? Is that a possibility?
That's going to be on his shoulders because we'll certainly be seeing him about it.
Well, that's something maybe to look forward to down the line. Now, I hate to see a coach like that leave, especially one that was an alum, but obviously you get an opportunity to be a head coach like he wanted to be. You got to take that.
Sure.
So we wish him the best, and I'm sure I'll be talking to him throughout the season as well. But new defensive backs coach, Rick Perriandi comes in. What can you tell us about him?
Rick's a great guy. He's coached 19 years at Conestoga Valley. He was their secondary coach there, and I think he coached special teams as well. He also indoor track and head outdoor boys and girls track coach. So it kind of fits in as I'm easing away from track. He's fitting into the track, and obviously with Jamie leaving, I pushed very, very hard to try to get Rick. I mean, he's a great guy and a great teacher right off the bat. So there's, kids are first. Everything about him is Class A. Plus, he's a very good coach. He's very intense. He's very into it. He's involved. He's high energy. And it's kind of funny because Billy Hawes and I introduced him to his wife. His wife was coaching hurdles for us at the time. It was indoors.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, I was trying to think it was indoors up at Kutztown or where we were, but we got talking to him. He was a young coach. Molly was a young coach, and we said, we gotta get together. And before they left that meet, they'd exchanged numbers, and one thing led to another.
So we can add matchmaker to your resume.
Add matchmaker, yeah. So
Well, that's great. Now, I'll be talking to Rick and the other assistant coaches in a week, so that'll be on the next episode of the Bulldog Hour I look forward to. I always like meeting the new coaches. I haven't talked to Rick much yet, but he's been very open to sitting down with Justin and me, so look forward to talking to him in the not-too-distant future. Are there any other staff changes, or is it just Jamie and Rick?
No, we brought on Sal Pugliese.
Okay.
All right. Taking...
Is he taking Chase Godfrey's
place? Because Chase actually took a teaching job at Conestoga
Valley. Yep.
Right, which is 5 minutes from his house.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, that was a commute issue, a timing issue.
And he's having another baby,
sure.
And the whole thing. And Rick lives in Wilson, so
So you made a trade.
Sure, we traded a trade.
We give you Godfrey, we'll take Perriandi.
Well, we gave them more in amount and mass. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, well, I wish Chase the best as well. He was great. I mean, he actually coached with me for a year when we did the combined West Southern team back in 2019, I think. Probably 2018, 2019, and then I got to come up here with you for the next 3 or 4 years. So sad to see him go, but it's always great to have an alum come back.
Very intense guy. I mean, Sal Pugliese, played for us and graduated past year. So he's coming on as an assistant offensive line coach. He'll be working with LCD with the offensive line. So he'll come up to speed. I mean, he's played for us for a couple of years. He's now going to be coaching with us. He's learning the ropes.
And he's a teacher here in the district now.
Yeah, he's a teacher at the high school as well. So we still have 5 or 6, 7 coaches in the high school, which is
it's good to be in the building.
Good to have.
One of your assistant coaches, not technically new this year, but when we talked to you a year ago, I didn't really know what was going on. We weren't sure what he was having with. Coach Henney is back with you now, and I think it was just a few weeks later then the cat was out of the bag that he was going to be around more than I think people thought he was going to be in his first football season away from the NFL. What has Chad's impact been on your staff and with the players now that he's got a full year under his belt?
Well, last year when I first talked with Chad, and he had said about he wanted to coach high school football, and I said, well, you tell me how much you want to be around, because he obviously got out of the NFL because he wanted to spend time with his kids. He didn't want to miss his kids growing up. And he does. He spends a ton of time coaching all his kids and everything. So he was there and added a lot of ideas and ended up showing up more than he planned on showing up. And now this year he's really bought in hook, line, and sinker. He's there all the time unless he's on vacation or whatever. But just sees a lot of things, says little things to the quarterbacks, little things to the receivers, little things to the D-backs, always coming up with just subtle little things that you might not think about that is automatic after 15 years in the NFL. So great add to the staff. I just was laughing this morning at practice because I said, how many high school programs have a 15-year NFL veteran throwing, it's for secondary pass?
Right. I would not think a lot.
So, and then after practice, I abused him that I can't even make the starting team. He has to throw in that squad. So, but he's fun to kid around with. He's been around the block, so he fits in very well.
Good to hear. I know a lot, for the years when people knew his career was winding down, he was having a great time, a lot of success, playing on a great team. And people are always asking, what's Chad going to do when he retires? What's Chad going to do when he retires? Is he going to coach at Wilson? So I was always think, I don't know. Let's talk to him when that comes up. And even when we talked to him last March, it was a lot like you said. It was like, I'd like to be involved, but I want to be with the kids. And like you said, that's definitely happening. I see the posts. I know he's coaching and doing all kinds of things with the kids and the family. But that's why it was surprising to see him here on picture day and, with the shirt on, because he had told me he was kind of just, like a consultant, almost like an analyst. Like I chip into things here and there, but I'm not a field guy. Like I won't be there on the field. That changed pretty quickly, it seems. So.
And it's changed even more this year. Like this year, he went to camp with us.
Oh, nice.
Had to sleep in a dormitory. I don't know when the last time that happened.
Probably, let's see. Probably, if you're not counting whatever they live at in Michigan, probably when we were going to Albright or Penn. So,
but great ad, as is Pat Zerbe. Pat's not around as much because Pat obviously has a full-time job, but he gets here as often as he can. And usually he'll get here more once we start the season because it's the end of the day,
right?
As opposed to what we're doing
the morning stuff. Sure, yeah. And Pat he came last year, right?
Yep,
that was his first year, as well as Dave Tabner.
Right.
Was his first year last year.
Yeah,
So
a lot of newbies.
Mixing old with the new. There's plenty of guys like you and the staff that have been around for decades. I mean, even pushing guys like Steinmeier and Peterson and Lil Wolver, like those guys have now been here for 10. Yeah. Mark's probably close to 10. The others are over 10 with LCD.
LCD
or 15.
Jake or 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. We were up at camp, and after the one session, the one coach was walking off. And he said, we did pretty well for an old guy. Huh? And he's patting himself on the chest. And I looked at him and I said, old guy? How old are you? He said, I'm 55. I said, you're not even in the ballpark. Yeah, you're right. We have a great blend. And it's a good way to keep a coaching staff solid. Mm-hmm. You bring young guys in. Sometimes they have ideas, new ideas, but you have the whole mix of experience, wisdom, and youth.
Yeah, that's a great mix to have, that diversity of thought and opinion, old versus new. You got to have the proper blend, or you're not going to be able to keep up. So we talked about non-league, not really league changes. There are none. Section 1 of LL stayed the same. It's all 6A schools. All you're doing is flip-flopping home and away. Get to go to Reading, Mifflin, Penn Manor Township, hosting Cedar Crest, Hemphill, McCaskey. Do you have any thought on those opponents this year, what the hierarchy looks like? If you take Wilson out of it, how does the rest of the LL stack up against one another?
Well, Township's always going to be the team to beat.
Even with their massive graduation losses, they're just reloading.
Because they had a really nice quarterback in JVs. Their running back's the best running back in the league.
Clancy.
He's going to be tough, and he's a linebacker, and he's a stud. And they had a couple of linemen coming back. So, and Evans does a good job, so they're going to be tough. Reading's got some skill.
Okay.
They've got some really good skill kids back, and they have a really big offensive lineman that people are starting to notice.
Is that Washington? Is his last name Washington?
Something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Penn Manor's, they've been slowly creeping up, getting better and better every year. I think they were 500 last year.
I believe so.
So, they're going to be a team you can't overlook. Cedar Crest will be interesting because they have a new coach, so it's hard to say,
right.
What's going to happen there. And they lost their studs. But they've always got good athletes and they always have speed. And then McCaskey, he's been there several years now, so I suspect that, they're getting a better product every year. So and obviously Hempfield's Hempfield. So if
coach you're familiar with.
Oh, sure. We know George Kikuali coached us. You got to start with Township. And then I would say probably Hempfield. And then I'd say you got to toss up between Cedar Crest, probably, and Penn Manor.
Okay.
And then Reading and McCaskey. But Reading and McCaskey could be sleepers.
With wild cards.
Yeah, because they've got some talent. So I think the parity in the league is squashing a little, getting more parity.
Rather than one or two top dogs in the rest.
Like last year, Township was a team for the ages.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
That team was just, they didn't have a weakness. I have my opinions on what happened with Harrisburg, but, I thought they should have walked right through to the state finals.
Well, it looked that way. Like you mentioned, they were up pretty big at halftime and towards the end of the game. And got to watch that overtime. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. Because like you said, I thought they were going to be playing in the state final, where they inevitably would have had to play St. Joe's Prep. I don't know how they would have handled that. I don't know how anyone handles that.
Nobody handles it.
Other than Mount Lebanon broke through, I guess, a couple years ago and shocked them. But
St. Joe's Prep was missing three top players.
It takes some special circumstances for that to happen anymore. I had grouped Mifflin in there. Obviously, they're not a Section 1 team, but what can you say about the chief rivals, going to Mifflin this year? They have a new coach as well. So.
Yeah, new coach, although he's been on their staff for a long time. But they brought back a whole bunch of the old guys. I just saw, Nick Vecchio is going to be their offensive coordinator.
Oh, okay.
So I imagine their offense is going to stay pretty much the same.
Now you're not talking revolutionized, no spread or
Doesn't look
RPO.
like it,
No.
But, Mifflin's always it's a game that's tough only because it's a rival. The Singleton's junior and senior year, he was a special player. And we just didn't handle him well, but I expect it'll be a good game only because of that rivalry and, kids get a little tense sometimes, but without Singleton, I think we've had their number, so hopefully we continue to.
Well, that's what everyone would like, and at least probably watching this show, unless someone from Mifflin is hate watching this show. I think you're going to have a lot of people that agree. Helmet decisions, it comes up every year. The players decide that again this season?
Players, I'm so old school, it's ridiculous. But, people always ask me how have kids changed, and kids like to have some input, right? And feel they have input. And one way you can feel they have input is by letting them decide what they want on their helmet. Right? It doesn't affect our play, all right, but it gives them a little ownership in what's going on. So, we put it out there. They basically have three options, that can go on the helmet. They can have the football, they can have the Bulldog, or they can have the scripted Bulldogs. And
they went with double script Bulldogs.
They went with double script Bulldogs this year. They can go with whatever they want, but that's what they wanted. So. I know some old people say,
Well, yeah, I get a lot of I'll call it feedback or people telling me that I need to change that as if I have any control over what goes on the player's helmet. They want the Bulldog. That's what I hear.
Well, what you need to do is you need to dig out, and I don't remember what year it was on the History Wilson football
19
cover
or 20.
That had all the helmets from all the years.
Well, we could go back to the red leather one with the white stripe if we wanted to. I've been trying to find an artifact or remnant somewhere on eBay to add to my collection just to see the progression over the years. But the Bulldog was a staple up until, I guess, 2019. When we did the 75th season Bulldog and then the throwback W in football, and that was originally on the helmets in the mid to late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, well, when I started here, it was a football.
There you go, yeah.
With a W in it.
Yeah, mid 70s, right? Yeah.
76.
Because I think that changed to the football in the late 70s. Right before those Gursky teams went like 44-2 or something over 4 years. That was right around the switch over.
78, 79, 80, 81.
Yep, those four teams. So, which at least one of your coaches was on those teams, or a few of
Just
them.
one.
Just one
One
coach.
old enough.
He was on 3 of those 4 teams, though. And we'll talk to Ernie next week. How about anything else? Well, I guess I should ask, who's making the decisions with the decals, the uniforms, those changes? Because I know Matt Bender had been in charge of that for a while, but he retired from coaching. Is he still working with you on those things, or did someone else take that over?
No, he just throws ideas out. I run stuff by him sometimes, but ultimately, when we want to do something, I'll go to the coaching staff and say, "What do you think?" And then we'll go to some of the seniors and say, "What do you think?" But no, it's not that big a deal.
It's not that big of a deal to you, but it's a big deal to at least some of the players for sure.
I'm sure.
And definitely those in the community. Maybe not so much when it trickles down to jerseys and uniforms, but the helmet is definitely one that I hear about all the time.
I'm sure.
Are there any significant changes to high school football this year? Any rule adjustments? Anything with the refs? Is there anything that's happening that may consternation to the people watching the games? Why did that happen?
I haven't looked at the new rule book very closely yet. We haven't had our rules interpretation meeting yet, but I don't think there's any cataclysmic changes per se. Usually they have what they call points of emphasis,
right,
which they're going to continue to stress the blindside hits. Protect them that way, the defenseless player. Anything that can cause injury.
Sure.
Obviously, you'll probably get to it. In District 3, we're going to 10 teams instead of 8 teams qualifying because we have more. 6 to 8 teams.
That was
right.
Coming up here. So,
but no major rule changes that I'm aware of at the moment.
Okay. Well, yeah, let's talk about that. We had, it's a new tier cycle, and that's associated with the PIAA classification. So Wilson's always going to be in 6A unless they would go back to 4 or add more, which I certainly don't think is going to happen.
Right.
Wilson's always going to be in 6A. There were some changes around the state, especially in District 3, so there are more teams now in 6A, and with only taking 8 teams the previous, I think, 6 years of this system now? There's going to be more playoff teams. So we're expanding to 10. I assume seeds 1 and 2 are getting a bye, or are they doing it a larger breakdown?
I would think seeds 1 and 2 will get a bye.
Because I guess they could technically do seeds 1 to 6 could get a bye, and 7 could play 10 and 8 could play 9 to give you your final 2.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if they had any of that.
They haven't said any of that out yet. All I know is I've seen how many teams are going to take. I thought they were going to take 12. Because typically there's 22 6A teams this year.
Yeah,
and typically they take just over half.
And there had only been, 16 before? 17?
17 or
17, 18. Yeah, the high teens. Yeah. But we didn't get to 20, but 22 now this year, including Mifflin.
Exeter would have been.
Yeah, Exeter
they dropped their co-op.
Crossed the line by, I think, half a student. But they dropped their Antietam co-op to get back down into 5A. Antietam players will now play with Reading. So playoff expansion is happening at D3 6A up to 10 teams.
Right. So you might not have that bye anymore, depending
on what they decide and how they organize it.
But I always said, that I kind of wish they would take 12 because that. Inevitably, somebody that's 6 and 4 may sit at home with only 10 teams. And if you're thinking about it, when you're playing a schedule like ours, it's not hard to go 6 and 4 and be a pretty darn good football team.
Right.
The less teams you take, the more teams are going to try to pad their schedule with easy games. So, but hey, at least they took a couple more.
Right. It makes it a little bit easier to. For scheduling issues or issues where you're forced to maybe schedule a team you wouldn't normally play. And then that all revolves around power ratings.
Sure it does, but it is funny because if you look, almost every section, almost every division, including the other ones in the state, have just over half the player teams qualifying for district playoffs.
Right. 10 should have been a minimum. 12
would have been just over 11 would be half, so 12 would have been just over half. But each district makes that decision, so that's not a PIAA decision. That's a district decision.
Right. Well, they have to be cautious with what the PIAA tells them of, hey, your champ needs to be ready to play state playoffs on this day.
Right.
So
well, they have the time window. It's just how many teams are going to get a bye that first game.
How do you feel about the District 3 power rating? Because each district does it their own way. Power ratings have been around at District 3 now for over a decade, probably maybe even closer to 2 decades now. I know they didn't, at least in this fashion, they didn't do it when I was playing here.
Yeah,
this is not a new concept. It's been around for a while.
It's probably the fairest, because it's based on, teams' winning percentage and the teams they play's winning percentage. So, just because you have a win against a team that's 1-9, you're not getting as many points as if you had a win against a team that's 5-5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they can't. I mean, it's not perfect, but they can't really get a perfect system because there'd always be arguments over. This team has got an easy schedule, and that's why they're 5-5.
Yeah, I feel like the most that I hear about, and it's usually only when the top 3 teams are really close, is it doesn't necessarily take into account. I mean, it does indirectly, but the head-to-head results. People don't like seeing a team above them that they beat, but you're below them because you probably lost to someone else. There's always going to be an excuse for whatever. But I don't know that there's any other way they can tweak it. Like you said, it's probably the fairest they can do is what they would do now because it takes into account your winning percentage, your opponents, as well as those that they play.
Right.
Because I've calculated every year to try to figure it out. I know that there's a lot of math and a lot of data involved.
And I'm sure they just have an algorithm up there. They just punch everybody in, on a computer program. But it requires you all scores got to be input, all win-loss games got to be inputted every week.
Yeah. And when you're trying to project it like me, that means predicting every single game that has any impact on those scores. But done a pretty good job of playing it out, especially when there's only a week or 2 to go, and that can really fine-tune and pinpoint likely final location, which tells you, hey, I'm going to have a home game or a road game. Who are the likely teams I'm going to play? And people very much like when I post that in October.
That creates a good food for discussion.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Jess and I have fun with that on the show as we get closer to Halloween. Has there been any...
What you should do is you should put up, okay, here's the 10 teams that we might be playing in the playoffs, and put some odds out there. Get a little fanfare. What's that called?
Create our own. It would be interesting. We'll definitely see. My favorite though is when someone tells me that no way that's going to happen, and then it turns out that happens. I'm like, math is math. Data doesn't lie. I can tell you this can happen or this can't happen. And, I mean, it was not more prevalent than back in, I guess it was 2019, 5 years ago now, when Manheim Township had beaten us here. But because they had, I think, a weaker non-league schedule versus ours, so even though they were 10-0 and we were, I think, 9-1, we ended up as the 1 seed. I had Township fans telling me there's no way that's going to happen. I'm like, you can say that all you want, but when we're the 1 seed, this is why. And I told them exactly why, but they don't want to hear it.
It gets carried out to one.
It's a lot. It's a lot of digits. It's a lot of
10,000
digits. So
points.
But yeah, there's so much that goes into it. It takes a long time to set those up each year, but when it's done, it can really be a nice tool, especially social media fodder for certain. Have you seen, rumblings, mentions, anything directly of trickle down of the name, image, likeness stuff? I brought it up to you a couple years ago when it was new at college level, and we had talked about it was only a matter of time until it came to high school. PIAA basically just said, do what you want, basically. And we saw it at the end of last season with players from around the state, high school players, getting, basically endorsement deals. Has that come up with you in any way?
No, unfortunately. I'll tell you, the endorsement deals you get are either in a very small community where football is the only thing, right, and people want to do it, or in a situation where you have a blue chip.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, there's so many things that can, and coaches aren't allowed to be involved.
Right.
We're supposed to monitor it, but we're not allowed to be involved. But, I mean, it's going to eventually come to a point where, a car dealership's going to say, hey, you have a really good son, football player. Why don't you come and work for me, and I'll pay you this much more money.
Right.
And it's name, image, likeness. And, I'm not a big fan of it, but, I guess, society's, in today's society, but it just is going to make the playing field even more or less level, when it happens.
Yeah, there's always the backdoor dealing, the quid pro quos. If you move into this district, we can offer you this. It's an interesting thing.
Hey, Tom Sino can say, hey, here's a lease. Here's a 2-year lease your junior and senior year. You don't have to pay on it. It's not your car. It's a lease. We get it back after you graduate. But, hey, what high school kid isn't going to say yes?
Right.
Or Wawa is going to say, hey, here's an unlimited,
Here's an unlimited drink pass.
Or whatever. Or here's unlimited gas. Or, just needs the right person with the right amount of money and wants to get involved. I think they could do it for their sons. It's what I think is going to happen is you're going to have somebody that's really loaded and his son's on the team and he's going to want to get some of those people in to make his team better.
Right.
That's where I don't know. Name, image, likeness. Not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of it at college level. I think they should have just, obviously they're using them for money. They should have just come flat out and said, hey, every player on the team gets this much money and we're going to pay you.
When you've seen sort of some, I know it's not yet directly the schools, but you've seen those collectives do that at some places. And not just for football either. Sure. Not just football either. There's a lot, some are, all of their athletes get this amount from this collective.
Sure.
There's definitely pros and cons to it. I definitely understand the cons. I understand the pros too.
I'm waiting for Title IX to raise it.
Well, that's coming. That's coming for sure.
When you have every football player at Penn State getting X amount of dollars, does that mean we have to give every girl athlete X amount of dollars?
Well, with the most recent litigation that came out, they've now opened up that the schools can spend up to $20 million, I think it is, paying their athletes. Now that it's not collectives doing it and it'll be the school, that's when Title IX is going to come into it. When it was the collectives, you could probably skirt that because it's an individual, not privatized or state funded or whatever school you're talking about. When it was the collectives, you could maybe move around those issues. But once it's the schools, everyone's going to have to be the same. So
I look at this is like Blue Chips, the movie. If you remember the basketball movie with Blue Chips. Hey, we'll give you this. You get a new truck if you come here. Well, they give them that now anyway.
And
they're all getting that stuff.
Name, image, likeness is great because it was designed to help the athletes sell themselves. It wasn't meant to be, if you come here, I'll give you money.
Right.
How do you monitor that? How do you enforce the restrictions? It's one thing to have the guys with the unique names that advertise for. Local HVAC companies. That's what NIL was for. Right. NIL was for, or like what you probably have heard the players talking about, the new college football game. Everyone that opted into that game got $600 in a copy of the game. That's what NIL was for. It wasn't, as we just heard, the softball player getting $1 million deal to move schools. It was basically, we'll give you $1 million if you leave your school and come play for us. That's not the heart of NIL.
Well, and here's the next thing. All right. You have let's say the high school quarterback from Nazareth who committed to Virginia Tech. He's only a junior. Now, Virginia Tech is going to be giving him $1 million or whatever. That's the going rate for a Power 5 quarterback. All right? $1 million. So does he even play his senior year in high school?
So it is going to try
to take the risk. Effect.
Right.
There were kids that were, because they were signing early, were opting not to play their senior year so they didn't get hurt. Now they're going to be looking at them opting not to play their senior year because of all the money.
We saw that already a couple of years ago when the current Texas quarterback, Quinn Ewers, committed to Ohio State and was going to forego his senior year, and he ended up reclassifying and going to Ohio State basically right away anyway. So it didn't make as much of a ruckus as it could have. But he was not going to play his senior high school football season because of his commitments to Ohio State. And that didn't work out. He ended up back at Texas, and now he's the starter for them. But that's when you start impacting, 16, 17-year-old kids, it's just a really gray and also shady area.
That kind of money?
It's the wild, wild west, it seems. Just a couple of questions here to wrap up. Are there any new faces from outside the program, like that weren't on the team last year? And also, who are some players you expect to make an impact that the community may not know about?
We have a young boy that transferred in from Milton Hershey that looks like a kid by the name of Malachi Tolles. Looks like he might be able to help us on the defensive line.
Underclassman?
He's a junior.
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably it. We don't get the transfers that everybody thinks we get because we're not out there recruiting. I wish we could do that kind of stuff, but PIAA says you can't recruit, but you could have a person with big bucks offer somebody to come here, and that's okay. All right. So he's really the only new face that may see some varsity time.
So is his eligibility then in question for the playoffs because of the time that he moved, since he was going to be a junior?
We're getting that information right now from Milton Hershey. It's whether or not he's going to fit into one of those categories that allows him to play in the playoffs. We don't know. There were some incidents there that caused him to leave, and if those incidents fall into a certain category that PIAA recognizes,
he'll get a waiver.
He'll get a waiver, right?
Well,
but he's not it's not like he's the running backs from Harrisburg or whatever.
Right.
They're transferred in there. They're Power 5 running backs.
Yeah. I don't want to dive off topic. It's on topic, but I have other things I want to wrap up with you. But the PIAA eligibility thing and the way that they handle transfers is, I'll say, wild to me. With how they determine these things, and the people that end up getting hurt they got caught up in a net that it wasn't meant to catch certain groups from getting caught up in, and it still isn't really penalizing the ones that are taking advantage of the system.
Well, you get a kid that transfers in that's not an impact player. Maybe he works his way onto a special team, and now he can't play in the playoffs. And he's, they moved.
Right.
Plain and simple, they moved.
Well, it's wild to me. Just a few years ago, we had a player move in from Texas, out of state, couldn't play in the playoffs because he was deemed a transfer.
Right.
The family moved states, and you're penalizing a student athlete because of it. I just don't understand that. But then there's so many other things that is allowed.
Inexplicable.
There's always been rumors, of coaches banding together to change things, politicians getting involved, and we all love when politicians get involved because a lot gets done when they get involved. So, but we're still in the same system, and we saw. Just why Missing was forced to move up because they were deemed to have enough quote transfers and their success formula to deem if they didn't have these transfers, they would still be at 3A where they're supposed to be playing. But because they deemed to have enough transfers, they lost their appeal and are now playing at 4A.
But it's that only works for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right. 6A is a catch-all.
Is a catch-all, and the best 5A teams move up to 6. So 6 just keeps getting stronger and stronger.
With Archbishop Wood a few cycles ago, they had won too much, and as a non-boundary school, obviously had as many transfers as they could, and they got bumped up to 6A. But then they didn't have success in 6A, and now I think they're back down to 5A.
There's one of the private schools down there got bumped to 6 this year. I think it was Ryan or
was it Imhotep?
Imhotep, I think, got bumped to 5.
5, okay.
Yeah, it's just what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Who knows? Answer. If anyone has an answer, please let me know. How about new starter this year or a senior that people maybe don't know about that could make an impact, step up in a way that maybe they weren't able to last year?
I think Derek Reininger is going to have a nice year for us. He started for us last year at offensive guard, but was kind of, lost in the shuffle. He'll be a solid.
Linemen in general don't always get a lot of recognition anyway.
But I think defensively he could be a force. He's quick. Geloso missed last year. He had a concussion issue. He's back, so people don't know him, but he'll probably start at center. Most of the rest of them are, you have Christo and Brady and those guys that are all seniors, but they played last year and they were known last year.
Established, yeah.
Yeah, so we have that handful of really good senior starters, and then we fill in with, whoever else gets the job done.
So who are some of the underclassmen that are going to fill in these spots vacated by your big senior class?
Well, Avery Monera and Jesse Etchberger will probably be the starting tackles.
And they're both to be juniors.
They're juniors. They're going to be juniors. In the secondary, Monty Greer is a sophomore. He's probably going to start at one of the safeties. The other safety is a battle between 2 or 3 kids, all of underclassmen. The one corner is most likely going to be an underclassman. There's a couple of them battling there yet, so we have to wait till the pads go on. Brown Beck's going to be one of the linebackers inside. Harding's going to be starting linebacker. They're both underclassmen. Up front, Glover's going to be in the mix defensively. The Tolles kid will be in the mix defensively. They're underclassmen. So defensively, you're looking at probably seven younger guys, maybe 8. And offensively, the 2 tackles, as I said, Carpenter is a wideout, an underclassman. Glover will be in the mix as a tight end underclassman. Greer and Akins will be running backs. They're both underclassmen. So, a lot of young faces.
Yeah, well, there was a lot to replace because the senior class was so big. 4 offensive linemen, obviously the quarterback, and then a lot of them played 2 ways. And defensively, you're replacing a lot. So it seems the senior class this year is a little bit smaller than it's been recently.
It is.
By a few maybe a handful of guys.
I think we only have like 22. We usually have 25, 26, 27. But it's a nice, strong junior class. They just got to learn, and they got to learn fast. They got to become football smart and savvy really quick.
Well, what are your expectations from this team then this year, knowing what you're up against with new non-league schedule and having to replace so many guys? Where do you think the team is at right now?
Well, if we had to play today, we'd be in trouble. Like I said, we've got a lot of kids that have to really up their game. They'll mentally learn a lot about the game. Athletically, we're pretty good. We'll be lucky to win a game.
Is that it? And just you think you can only get to 1?
Yeah.
Or not even necessarily 1?
We'll be lucky to get 1.
Well, I know everyone wants you to get to 6, that's for sure. It would be I don't even know what would happen if it was 0 or 1. I can't even fathom that. So I'm not even going to.
They tar and feather me and run me out of town on a rail. Well, it's like anything. We'll know what our season's going to be like after 3 games because, if we come out of that 0-3, then we're going to be in trouble because then they're going to have confidence issues. We come out of it 1-2 and we battled. Now we can make some progress. 2-1, come out of it 3-0. We're going to be pretty good.
Well,
it's just a question of getting game experience.
And just last year, it was an 0-2 start. It was tough. Going down the Roman Catholic was your backs were always going to be against the wall for that. But then the overtime loss to Central Dauphin. So these guys have been there. They've seen the adversity thrown at them, and they were able to run the table the rest of the season until week 10 and 11, Township and Cumberland Valley. But they were battling them in both games. The Township game, we were worried about going into the season because we knew the talent that they had back, and they came here ready to prove it. But honestly, I was impressed by the game against them last year because they didn't give up.
Our kids battled.
They
well.
battled the whole time.
Yeah.
Gave Township one of their better games last year, other than maybe was it their game against Springford at the beginning of the year that was relatively close, but then they were just blowing through everyone until they came here, and then when they fell a few weeks later to Harrisburg. So. There's experience there with both a slow start, but to see what can happen once you get your confidence going and you've had that experience, especially when you have such a young crew.
We've changed some things. We're doing some things a little different this summer, and hopefully, it'll pay off. We'll be in better shape. I mean, we've changed our conditioning regimen, and I would say up at camp, when we went up to camp, our kids were in as good a shape as anybody, better than most. So hopefully that strategy is going to pay off. We're going to be pretty much 2 platoon up front, which means those guys are going to be fresher. I mean, a lot of those guys on offense want to play defense, but we said they'll have a role, but it's not going to be
rotational, not full time.
So we keep fresh. You keep fresh legs in there, and
The
that fourth quarter, especially early in the season, pays dividends.
When it's still super hot out and sunny. Right. Is there a rotation at quarterback? What's happening with that position?
We don't know. Christo Tommy's little brother was there for a while, but we decided that we had to narrow the competition down to get enough reps. So he's obviously going to start at linebacker, but he's also going to play some tight end and wide receiver. So we moved him there. And so then Mason Young and Maddox Gruber are taking the reps there. Maddox is a little bit ahead in terms of game savvy. Mason throws a nice ball, does well in 7-on-7, but still has to develop a presence and, when there's 11 guys out there, not, when the linemen are there. So we'll see. We're going to wait and see. It's still a competition, but time will tell. I mean, we'd love if Mason got the job because Maddox can then play wide receiver, defensive back, pick up return, punt return. He's going to have less reps at those positions if he's the quarterback.
Right.
But, he's also a very skilled athlete. You want the ball in his hands. So jury's out yet. Time will tell.
Well, you got Heat Week coming up a week away. Not even a week away.
Days,
Monday, right? Monday is heat acclimatization. The week of the 12th and 19th will be your 2-a-days or 3-a-days, whatever they're called anymore. Yeah. And then scrimmage and game 1 is before school even starts at Cheltenham on the 23rd. So last thing, what message do you have for the fans and community before this season gets underway?
I think it's just like anything else. Hey, Friday night at Wilson is social activity for all the high school and junior high kids. It's a great activity for the alumni and fans just to see a community come together behind something, and, you get 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 fans in the stands. It just gets electric. It gets noisy. It gets fun, good food, just inexpensive entertainment.
Right.
For a Friday night to see how a program can bring a community together. And, hopefully that's what will happen.
Yeah, well, I had the players in here before you talk about that. Some of them, their fondest memories was the first time they ran onto the field in front of the crowd, in front of their friends and family, in front of the student body, and, of course, the little kids that are looking up to them and can't wait to be in their shoes in a few years. So thank you so much for joining us, sitting down again. We always love this talk. You get your own episode, I get to say. I got an hour with Coach Dahms. It gets a little bonus since Justin and I only got to do one of these in the last 6 months. We usually like to do 2 or 3. So I'll be putting out extra content with your interview here. So I thank you for taking the hour to talk with me.
Thank you. And as I said in the beginning, thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, Coach, we will, I'm sure, talk to you after hopefully at least one win this year. We'll get to talk to you,
Hopefully.
But we'll make sure Justin and I will catch up with you on Friday nights in just like 3 weeks. So
wow,
I know it's here, but everyone's excited about it, and I'm sure the staff and the players are too. So thanks again, and look forward to talking to you real soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in for the Coach Dahms interview episode. It's usually one of our most popular episodes of this preseason for sure. Senior player interviews that we did on Sunday usually takes the cake, but actually you all turned out in full force. This is our most watched live stream ever. So thank you for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Hope Coach Dahms answered some questions that many of you were thinking about as we, full speed ahead towards the start of the season. We got 17 days. That's it. 17 days until the first game of 2024. Remember, that's down at Cheltenham on Friday, August 23rd. The team kicked off heat acclimatization yesterday. Justin and I are going up tomorrow in between practices to interview, I think, every assistant coach. So if you haven't heard from someone before, get ready to hear from them. If you have any questions for them, better get them to us now. But Justin and I are talking with, I think, 11 of them tomorrow. So tune in for that broadcast of those interviews with the assistant coaches this coming Sunday, August 11th, 6:30 p.m. is when it will go live. So we're not even a full handful of viewers away from hitting triple digits. So this is a fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap things up here. And just once again, want to thank our presenting sponsor, May's Sandwich Shop, and my dad, Bill Mays, for all the help getting this show started 10 years ago and continuing to support us along the way. And want to shout out again our anonymous donor for this season. Appreciate their support as always. And I know that they are one of those 100 people watching. If you would like to help Justin and me out on the show, the Bulldog Hour, and help expand our coverage, improve our equipment, and just be able to do more, which is what Justin and I want to do, you can reach out to me. Let me know that you're interested in partnering with us as a sponsorship. We accept it from local businesses. Obviously, we have partnered up with May's Sandwich Shop, and we've been connected with many other local businesses over the years as well. And we very much appreciate the support that has been given to us. And hopefully we get some more this season as well. So that's it for us here. Remember, the schedule, we're really close. 17 days to Wilson football. It's going to be a fun and exciting season. And Justin and I look forward to covering it. And you'll hear from us again real soon. As I said, this Sunday, episode 4 of season 10. Sitting down with nearly a dozen assistant coaches to talk about the offense, defense, special teams, upcoming alumni game, just this season in general. It's going to be great. A lot of fun. Very much looking forward to that. So that's it for us here on episode 3 of our 10th season. Thanks so much to Coach Dahms for sitting down with me this past Wednesday. Very much appreciate him giving us the time. And I think that's it. Follow us across social media at Bulldog Hour, at Wilson Bulldogs, at Wilson Bulldogs Football. You can send an email to wilsonbulldogsfootball@gmail.com. And make sure you check out bulldoghour.com. There's a great repository for history and heritage of the program. A lot of events going on, a lot of things happening. Past season information is up there. Current season information is up there. That's kind of new this year. Haven't really promoted that yet, but you can check out the 2024 season tab and get some information on the team. Also, do want to mention again, it'll be a week from Saturday is the Wilson Football Parents Organization second annual pig roast at Claris Hall across from Berks Catholic. Starts at 7 o'clock in the evening. $50 pre-sale ticket gets you in for all the food and adult beverages you can have. It's a great fundraiser for the program. Hope a lot of you will join them at that event a week from Saturday. That would be Saturday, August 17th, the evening after the scrimmage. So you'll be able to see the Bulldog team on the field, and then you can hang out and support the program at Claris Hall across from Berks Catholic High School for the Wilson Football Parents Organization second annual pig roasts. If you don't buy your ticket ahead of time, you can still go, but I believe it is $60 at the door. We got a lot coming up from the Wilson Football Tradition Club with the alumni game, but I will talk more about that this coming Sunday on our next episode. So for Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays. Until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
You're listening to the Bulldog
No,
Hour.
not that one. You already listened to it. Let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.